So all you have to do is just to tell her that she looks like a hoe.
Okay, I know that sounds horrible, but I promise it makes sense. So let me explain quickly.
I started dating when I was very young, mainly because in the Latino community it's kind of normal starting to make those kind of jokes. Once you're 11 years old, they start to ask you like, what's your girlfriend, who are you dating right now? And that's basically when I started. And obviously dating is not the same thing at that age in comparison with once you get older, but a couple of the rules and the psychology behind it is still kinda the same. So from that age, from 11 to 16, I always struggled with some common situations. First of all, I didn't know how to actually start a conversation. It could be through texting or in person. The second situation was that once somehow I started a conversation, it was very difficult to change the direction to where I wanted to go. So instead of being like something more related to being attractive, so it was more like in this kind of friendly or soy boy way, sending me directly to the friend zone, if you want to call it like that. And the third situation was that once I was already in a relationship, it eventually died very quickly because I didn't know how to actually keep a conversation alive. I always felt like after some time, once we were getting like accustomed to each other, we didn't have nothing to talk about. So our relationship and our conversations were getting more dry and boring. It reached to the point when we weren't talking at all. And obviously with that the relationship died. And it wasn't until I turned 16 when I started to actually educate myself in dating on how the relationship with women actually works, that I find out a very powerful trick that I'm going to teach you that changed everything. There was a girl that I used to work with and she was kind of cute with an attractive body, but I just didn't know exactly how to talk to her. You know, it was like this kind of awkward relationship where we actually know that we work in the same place, but we just like hold the breath and say like this, like trying to pretend that we don't know each other. So one day, her and my coworkers were in the same place, we were all having a normal conversation. It reached to a moment when I was only with her and I decided to put these tricks in practice again. So I kindly asked her, have anybody ever told you that you look like a hoe? That your face is kinda like that? I'm probably you're expecting for her to be upset and start to shout at me or whatever it could be, or like tell to the boss for me to get fired. But instead, she started to laugh and she told me that actually a lot of friends usually tell her that. From there, the conversation was way more smoothly and my connection with her started to build up a little bit more. What I did there was something that is called the hook. So the hook basically is a sentence, specifically more like a question that you use with the girls to see what they actually like up to talk with you. So depending on the context or how close you are to her, you're gonna ask like a specific question, but you don't want to know the question that you're asking. What you actually want to know is what is she's actually up to talk about, or the things that she doesn't want to talk about. So by asking her that question, I knew that she was more up to answer those kind of specific questions and she was able to joke about that. So that actually gave me a way for the things that I now know that I can talk with her and in that it could be more interesting. Obviously the level of intensity it's going to variate with the time, but all that you have to do is just use your common sense for that. So the hook is actually very powerful, specifically for the situations that I already talked before. When you start a conversation, the hook is basically something from the context itself to see what are you capable of talk to. You're hooking the girl into that topic that you know that you can actually talk about and that it could be more interesting for you all. The more specific knowledge you have about something, the better is going to be the hook. So there's a very good channel on call approaching that is called Bartek Self Improves, and almost every call approach that he does, he always uses a hook depending on the context.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, you?
Yeah, good. Enjoying your, let's see that. Is that a mango?
No, it's peach.
Can I try? I know I'm a stranger, but I'm really thirsty, so I've got no diseases, don't worry, so.
Okay.
When I used to work in restaurants, I wanted to ask questions to the girl. I was trying to identify something related about her that I could ask her. It could be about her accent, the color of her hair, the makeup that she was using, whatever it could be, if it was something that I knew that we could build up a conversation from there. In the second situation, when it comes to escalating or changing the direction, it's kind of difficult to get more like in this sexual energy because it feels uncomfortable, right? So with the hook, what you're going to do again is ask her like these kind of little small questions, obviously not being that obvious. It's not like you both are talking about the weather and then suddenly you're gonna ask like, what's the color of your underwear? Obviously don't do that. The way that this works is that you're having a conversation of whatever it could be, and then you start to ask like a little bit of more sexy or sexual kind of questions, and as it's related to the conversation, it's not going to sound that weird. She's gonna be like, alright, it makes sense that he's asking this. So there was a Caribbean girl and we were like kinda into each other, but I didn't know exactly how to escalate the conversation to something something a little bit more sexy or attractive. When I had the chance, we were talking about the person we were dating in the past, and that was before we started dating. She was telling me a story about one of her exes. I don't know exactly why, but from there I asked her the question, what is the kind of man that you used to date? And I asked her that like in a friendly way with a touch of sarcasm. What she did was that she started to open up to a level where I was able to ask more questions about the kind of man that she actually likes, and from there I just positioned myself as that kind of ideal. So the hook was actually that first question of what kind of men do you date, as a joke with sarcasm, and from there I was able to build up the relationship again to the level that I want. And for the last situation, when you're having conversations and everything is kind of boring, throwing a hook of a question that could be like really polarizing, it can add a lot of fun to a conversation. Instead of asking yes or no questions, especially if it's through texting, try to do it as open as possible. So for example, let's say that you haven't, I don't know, it could be whatever, let's say that about the role of man and woman in society, and then you ask something like, what do you think about the fact that men that are more dominant are more attractive? It's not something like, do you think that is, what do you think about? By asking her open questions where she actually has to elaborate, it gives her the chance to get more into the conversation and to actually think about the answer instead of saying like yes or no. I've been using this for a long time, and my conversations related to this actually take hours, and it's usually about interesting topics that I'm into it and she's into it as well, and that actually make the bond between us stronger, because now we're having deep conversations about topics that actually matter to each of us. So now you know how the hook actually works, and I have to give a couple of disclaimers. So the hook has like a spectrum. I'm pretty sure you noticed that a couple of the questions that I asked, they're kinda like polarizing and kinda difficult to ask. Nobody would usually ask these kind of questions because they get like the risk to get cancelled or getting a demand for harassment. So by using the hook, you have to either be able to take the risk of the thing that you're saying right now, or find a way to make her seem like she's misunderstanding the thing that you're saying. So if she for any reason like kinda acts like, what are you saying? Are you dumb? Are you an asshole? Whatever it could be, then you can say like, alright. It was a weird question. It's okay. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Or you can kinda like gaslight her in a sense, saying like, what are you talking about? I'm asking you because of this. And I know a couple of these tricks may sound like manipulation and stuff, but bro, let's be honest, like dating is actually a game. It's not about manipulation, it's more about making sure that you're playing the right moves. The hook is also very good to trying to tease her, like trying to play with her and getting kind of funny and maybe kind of goofy around her. And as I said, like one of the biggest benefits from this, it's being able to know the kind of things that you can actually talk with her about. Now there's something that you always have to bear in mind, and that is calibration. It's making sure that you're using the right kind of vibe in the right kind of moment. In other words, it's basically just using common sense. And calibration depends of the kind of girl that you're talking to and how close you are to her right now. So for example, the first girl that I mentioned, the one with the whole face, I didn't tell her that in the first day that we met because obviously I'm going to be seen as weird. I made the questions after a couple of weeks of working and seeing her oftentimes, and also after having the chance of first of all having a normal conversation with her. Even with all that, I took the risk to ask that question. But with the calibration that I had in my mind, it actually worked because we were into that kind of fight of making jokes and all that. So anytime that you're going to try to change the direction, try to at least be conscious of those things, because if not, you're gonna be labeled or marked as a weirdo that is asking weird ass questions that he doesn't have the right to ask. And that actually happened to me a lot of times, but from those mistakes I learned more and more how to calibrate in a conversation. I was so cringe that I was like asking to girls that I just met when was the last time that she slept with something and stuff like that, and obviously that's a huge mistake, and it's because I was lacking calibration. I knew about the hook, but I didn't know how to use it properly. If you're able to put this in practice, things are going to change a lot, for real, because it made it for me. And if you see a lot of these guys that like they pull a lot of women, you're gonna see them always using the same technique like over and over again. I know it may sound kind of scary because a lot of women nowadays, they're like in a defensive wave all the time, or you may feel like you're not confident enough to ask those kind of questions. But that's why the men that have the courage to talk to women in a different way are going to be the ones that are going to be able to attract more women. And besides, women actually respect that from time to time. They're going to see in you a confident young man that is able to ask these questions that no one else is asking. They're going to see that you're brave enough to ask the things that you want to ask, and that's going to give you a lot of points. Obviously, you have to use your brain. Don't say to any girl that she looks like how that was me taking a huge risk, and it was also because I had some experience with that same phrase. Be respectful, be a gentleman, but also be confident and have the courage to take the lead of the conversations. And I really want for you to actually be able to take control of your dating life and the girls that you want to attract, because When I learned this stuff, I was so shocked because I always thought that attracting women was more like a matter of luck. And after seeing that I could learn all of this, I was very happy because it was literally totally up to me. I was able to control my situation. So I really hope this helps you, bro. Keep working hard and try to be better every day.